Welcome back to Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. I'm your host, Allie Braswell, and this is our special Voices of Leadership series, real conversations with real leaders who have shaped people, teams, and cultures in extraordinary ways. Today's episode is the Voice of Innovation, and I'm honored to welcome a leader whose influence and impact reaches out across the entire Army. Joining us today is General Retired Gary M. Brito. And he has been responsible for the modernization of our forces. He has been responsible for the development of our talent and the well-being of soldiers. And now, in his first 32 days of being a part of this world called the civilian world or the retired world, I'm happy to welcome him here because, folks, you know, if it's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, it's time for Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. Please join me in welcoming General Gary Brito.
Hey, thank you,
sir.
Hey, thanks, Allie, and thanks for the opportunity. I guess it has been about 32 days now, a little more with some transition leave, but changing the look a tad bit. But thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about a very important topic, just transformation, taking care of soldiers, taking care of civilians and others and families. And couldn't be more happy to be here today. Thank you.
Excited to have you, too. So thank you for joining me. It's a privilege to have you here in such a short period of time after having left. But folks, I want to just take us back just for a minute. I've had the privilege of serving as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army Emeritus, but during that entire journey, my paths have crossed with General Brito. In fact, our first time that we came together was at the celebration of the opening of a facility for Sergeant Alwyn Cash. So, sir, let me take and give you a few minutes. Please talk a little bit about, even from that frame of reference, but your great Army career. Give us just a little bit of background on who Gary Brito is, General United States Army retired.
Well, thanks, Allie. Well, first of all, was proud to be a soldier for 38 years and 7 months, and a little longer than I thought, but just the path it laid out. Also a husband. My wife has been with me the entire time. We actually met in college, and a dad. I have 2 sons. One's an Army civilian serving down south of here, and one's an active duty captain serving in the 25th Infantry Division. So still has some skin in the game. Besides the military, obviously looking towards the next chapter as well. An ROTC grad, as mentioned, had a variety of assignments, no different than anybody, and had a very blessed, fortunate 38-year career, culminating as the last commander of the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command, and gave command up about a month and a half ago.
Wow. And I can remember that. That was a great moment in history. Your career spanning over 38 years is just phenomenal. And in this current climate place, when we're talking to leaders, you've gotten to experience it as a brand new leader, as a young second lieutenant, and then experience it at the most tenured and well honed position of general in the United States Army. And folks, let me make sure, for those of you who are not military aware, that's 4 stars, not 1 star, but 4 stars. And as I shared, when he was Colonel Brito, we had a chance to meet, and I got to watch, his rise to leading the most important part of the Army, which is training and doctrine that helps to make sure our soldiers are well prepared for when they enter into their place in their formations. So to kick us off, General Brito, what I'd really like to ask is, the foundation of transformation is really what we're going to talk about here. And so when we think about it, I'd love to begin with, when you think about your career and experiences that shaped you to understand and what it means to lead through transformation, what would you like to share with our listeners?
Well, certainly. Allie, I would offer not only just in the military, I'm sure in the corporate world has something very similar to this as well anywhere. Transformation is important, and it happens. And to me, Allie, it really means the ability to guide an organization through important change. And not just for the sake of doing something different. You can do that anyway, without a lot of thinking. But driving and leading the important change in support of higher echelons priorities, whether that's the military, like I was in, of course, or whatever corporate organization may be, but in support of those priorities, achieving those priorities, always good listening to your boss, uh, in support of a future vision or an end state that must be met. And again, not just for the sake of doing something differently, it's for the sake of staying ahead of any environmental challenges that may be out there. I'm not talking climate control and other things, but just adversaries or threats or technology. And leading through transformation can be very challenging, but yet very rewarding. And I would offer, Ellie, and this is just a personal thought, it's not the time to have any ego. You never should. This is in support of the big organization. This is an opportunity for the leader to help get the very best out of the people that he or she serves with. That's important as well. Establish objectives that must be met. So leading through transformation can be a challenge, but it is necessary. And if I may, Allie, I mentioned I just came out of the U.S. Army Training Doctor Command. I was the last CG. And I bring it up because we had activated the command as well at the end of September in support of modernization of the military, modernization of the Army. It wasn't the only thing that was going on in transformation initiatives, all good stuff. That in itself took a lot of work.
Right.
Luckily, had some good people to make it happen, but had to be nested and supported. I'm not saying had to be, wanted to be, to support my hire in this instance to achieve senior leader priorities, important priorities, and get the organization to it. And although those same people are part of this new organization, they'll continue to perform, and that's what the challenge and the job of leading through transformations is important. And that's just a personal thought as well. And I would offer for a senior leader, that's where you learn your money. You're going to earn your money there, and you should. If I can continue, I'm sorry. It might require,
No, this is great.
thank you. It might require, and likely will, establishing measurable objectives. It's important. Building cohesion or building upon cohesion that you already have. Some incremental changes to the organization. So the line and block chart might look like this now. It needs to look like this in 6 months. And a road and a path to get there. The bigger organization, that has to be factored in. No egos here. And even though we have a lot of technology, rightly so, we're using it, leveraging it. Machine learning, AI, computers, you name it. The people is still very important. So leveraging those personnel to be part of the change, that coalition that has to happen, is key. And it may require a relook at duty descriptions. It may require moving to new positions because this position is going away. It may require some upskilling. Quite frankly, it's going to, whether it's training in digital tools or AI or anything. It could take that as well. And I would offer that last condition doesn't apply to just uniform services. Probably any corporation will have to go through this. So personal thought, and I'll close on that. Actually, I could talk all day on it. The leading through transformation is a big deal, and it's something that the leader and those he or she leads in a team really have to put it all on the field and take it full force. Thanks.
Well, I really love the way that you did that. And you have to understand, I'm going to do a lot of listening and I'm taking notes over here. But I hope people are taking notes out there and who are hearing this podcast. The whole focus of Off the Record is to have that conversation you wish you could be a part of, to learn from leaders like yourself. And what I really heard you say is that true leadership goes beyond the mission. It's about the people, the purpose, and the partnerships that you build.
That's fair, Ellie, and you should keep your eye on the core mission. That has to happen concurrently with preparing for working through the transformation as well. So it is very important, and perhaps to take a little more personal because of some recent experiences, but you have to succeed, and that's what this is about.
One of the things I think General Edmondson said in episode 2 of this series was, take it personal, but don't take it personally. Being able to make sure that you're giving your best and preparing your team for the future. I think that's a true leadership opportunity where people have an opportunity to really pour into their teams. You led your organization through a transition of the casing of the colors on one command while at the same time birthing the new command. I mean, that's powerful, you know. But we could go back just a little further in your career, in your early journey. Was there a particular moment early on that helped you change how you saw leadership and how it should be used to help advance the mission?
Ellie, yes. And probably in hindsight now, obviously didn't know it at the time, and everybody would say the same. But, and I know I am not alone in this, and it can obviously, my experience was in uniform in this case, but was very fortunate to have been stationed at both of the CONUS U.S.-based training centers. The Joint Readiness Training Center, actually commanded there, and then 2 tours at the National Training Center. I'm not advocating for either one, but what I will say, just reps and sets to see innovative training, leaders learning and training as well, staff processes, new equipment, really opened my eyes on ways to, one, apply good leadership to soldiers and families, of course, but true innovate while doing that. And part of it was often just some new kit coming in, you're seeing it utilized, and some ways to do parallel means with training that must happen. So on that, back in my early days, and the earliest was the captain, then again as a lieutenant colonel, then again as a 2-star, 1 and 2-star at the training center. So over the years saw that, was able to apply it to some positions that I served in as well, either as a battalion or brigade S3 or later on as a Corps G3, and saw firsthand, and again, my story is not unique. Everybody's gone through this, the value of leadership that's engaged, selfless leadership, looking out for the betterment of the unit, for the best betterment of the people, the true improvement of the people, the mission, of course. And then I would say, Allie, if I may offer, both then and now, on the previous job and probably now, the value of managing risk appropriately, not to be risk averse, but don't be stupid either when you do things, and managing risk in what you do. And how that's important as a more senior guy, I like the word seasoned, to help manage those risks and buy down those risks for your higher organization. And I know for sure that would apply to a corporation as well. Not from a money perspective, but just from mission accomplishment, getting to those objectives perspective. And that's something I learned throughout. And I know my experiences are not unique. Many have done that. But back to leadership as well, it's key. And for those in uniform, knowing your people, caring for your people, having a good balance of empathy when necessary for those in uniform, and probably apply to any organization, is critical. And you will not start off that way. It comes with some time, a little bit, just comes with some time. And we all own that. And I always have a rose-colored glasses on, and I feel very, very positive and comfortable on where leaders in this military will take us, and I'm sure outside the military as I continue on with this next chapter. I'll pause.
Well, you know, I just think that's just perfect, and it's a great segue into where we're going, because you've talked about taking care of the people in order to meet the mission. You've talked about leading through difficult challenges of transformation, but you also were able to reflect back that early on, you knew there were things that were just in certain intangibles. They had to be there. They had to be components of where you were going to be if you're going to be successful. And, you know, I know when you and I have spoken, you've often said, Allie, I didn't join the Army to be a general. I joined the Army to serve. And, you know, but your service has led you there. And one of the things that you're really known for, sir, is the modernization. One of the things that is championing modernization while still keeping soldiers and families at the center. How did you approach balancing those priorities? Because a lot of times in corporate America, the challenge is how do you balance workforce? You remember when we went through the pandemic, how do we get people into the office or returning to the office? How do you balance that once their values are front and center, and how do we have them navigate through that? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Thanks. I just really got to hit the mic first before I start talking. Interesting. If I could spend just a minute on the pandemic, and I and no different than any leader out there, just happened to be in command down at Fort Benning at the time. And what I did learn, Allie, and this kind of gets to your question a tad bit, gets to your question. I mentioned core mission before. So receiving soldiers, developing leaders, training soldiers, that still had to happen. And yet balanced with managing the threat of COVID-19 in this case. So we did what they teach is an old mission analysis on how to get it done. And what wouldn't get done, what would get done, needed to be done differently, and yet still train that core mission so that if called, the soldiers that are being delivered could fight and win and deploy. That's not negotiable. And that's why the Army exists. I could probably take that, sanitize it, and apply it to any mission, corporate, another unit as well. But also saw taking care of soldiers, families, the community, took a different approach also. So those core missions, core tasks had to happen. And if I could offer one thing, maybe I thought about this when you asked the question, the leader is not doing it by his or herself. The leader should and will be more effective in pulling the strength of the team together to help it. Whether it's in uniform, whether it's civilian, or combination of both, and you could probably apply that to any corporation as well. Pulling that team, inspiring, helping that team be the best version of themselves to get to that mission. Because it's not about you. And
Yes.
that can be put aside because you won't be effective. You just won't be effective or as effective as you should be. The guidance, the balance, the resources, helping to buy down risk, ownership of successes, ownership of failures as well, helps to take care of those entities that you mentioned, whether soldiers, families, or really a combination of both. Hope I'm not going off target on the actual question, but that nexus is very important. And yet, have the vision to see what may be put in place beyond your watch. What am I doing now? What can be done now that's going to help this corporation in 3 to 4 or 5 years? What am I doing now that's going to help this military unit in 3 to 4 to 5 years? More in the rucksack of the senior leader, might not even be in the rucksack of the junior leader to helping you execute it. But that has to be balanced. And the staff, the team, there's all kinds of tools to help you get out there. But with all that, which is very, very important with a specific line of effort, the must happens of being ready to deploy, fight, and win is a must. No different than XX Corporation being to execute their mission is a must. And I'll stop there.
No, that's perfect. I think you stayed right on target. So were there moments when you were doing that where the decisions were so difficult? They were just tough, but you had to make them. How did you handle that?
Yes, for sure. And I'm not just going to give a one-term answer. And one, obviously, we think the entire military did during COVID. Really, the entire world did. But that aside, I learned a lot in the recruiting crisis that came up a couple years back, and I can talk to that as well. But Allie, interesting you bring it up. Any leader, and regardless of what he or she is wearing, is probably going to have to make an unpopular decision or a tough one. And a technique that I learned over some time, either through some bumps and bruises or shared with me through some mentors as well, to take your time to make the decision, because once it's made, it's made. There's an old term, once the email goes out, it's not coming back. Once the round leaves the tube, it's gone. Still think through those impacts of things. And a personal technique is if time wasn't an urgency, was made a preliminary decision, put it aside for a little bit, think about it, come back, perhaps bring in a trusted group to talk through the pros, cons, and the end state of that decision. And in the latter years, both in a Pentagon assignment and in the last command, red teaming it, pull in some outside eyeballs and say, hey, I'm going to make this decision. What's going to happen? What don't I know? And hopefully, in the leader aspect of things, have created a climate where folks won't be afraid to tell you, I know you're getting ready to do this. Here are going to be the impacts, good, bad, and ugly. And accept them. Have the humility, have the maturity, and systems in place to accept that feedback, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. But you may have to very well make the decision, sometimes in isolation. And that's the extra burden that the leader may have. So help red team things to help you see it. And I would offer on a personal perspective, not me personally, but the leader knowing his or herself on how they receive information, how they want to put it out, how you deal with it. It all helps to make sure that decision is executed and managing the risk that may come with it. And I'm sure that can be applied to any scenario, military, corporation, private business, what have you. But thinking through some things that way, and then own it. And lastly, Allie, a lesson I think anyone who served more than a couple of days, well, I shouldn't say that, a couple of decades learned over time, is underwrite the execution successes and share the successes and underwrite some of the mistakes that may come with that decision because you made it, or I made it, or he or she made it. And that's important for the climate of the organization because these things are going to happen. Successes are going to happen, but you build upon them and they all nest too and should support senior leader priorities, CEO priorities, CFO priorities, and others. And I'll pause there, but thank you for that. It's a really good topic.
I think that's those were golden nuggets, folks. I always tell you about golden nuggets that drop on the Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. Those were golden nuggets because you took us through a leader's perspective of navigating one of the most challenging times in history. And I think one of the great things that you said, and was when the email goes out, the decision has already been made. As a follow-up, how do you make sure the communication of that change of those decisions, how do you make sure that flows through the organization? Because a lot of the times what I hear from organizations when I'm in working with them on their leadership or their people first culture, they'll say, in the focus groups, well, we never know what's going on, or we're not informed. And I can remember being a young troop in the Marine Corps where you're like, well, change is our mission. Whatever they tell us to do, we got to do. How do you make sure that message at leadership that has gone through that entire piece that you laid out so eloquently? How do we make sure that the congruency gets down into the organizations where the change has to happen or the innovation has to happen?
No, thanks, Allie. Have probably been that person that they were receiving and say, what the heck's going on? This makes no sense at some point. But I offer that up for a reason. What I've learned on being that side of the fence and then being on this side of the fence as a person putting it out, and junior leaders have done this as well, will continue to. You can't underscore the importance of the importance of the why. And with our doctrine or military doctrine called it task and purpose, sometimes the why we're doing something is important and gives an understanding or very clear intent. And the why can be part of that, and why this is being made. So that helps those who are executing, even to the lowest echelon sometimes. But also, I think you started off by how do you communicate and share that? One, do know yourself. Are you comfortable talking in front of a large crowd or not? Are you okay with putting a 1.5 page information paper? Those are all techniques. It could be as something, I say simple, but if you have the setting to do at a town hall with leaders and soldiers, say, here's what's going on. Well, here's what I know at this point. Here's where we're going. Here's the path being laid forward. So communicate to the team. And that doesn't have to be done directly from you to the masses. It can be done directly from the leader through the respective staff. And I would offer up the second part is probably more effective sometimes. We also have a lot of technology out there. Be careful of your words. I would say, Allie, as well, and I've learned this both from making the mistake and then from fixing the mistake, is ensure you don't get ahead of your leadership. Don't get ahead of your own skis, some often say, and definitely don't be off message. And the higher up you go, for those in the military, and probably the same in the corporate organization, that's key, especially when it comes to very senior leaders or external forces. You don't want to get ahead of them. You don't want to be off message because that derails the organization. And quite frankly, it's just not effective leadership. So a combination of communicating, how you communicate, the frequency of it, and that can help walk up the chain of the milestones that you're trying to get to, whether it's transformation, innovation, or just an operation of some type. I've learned that at the other end, try to help execute it at the more senior, seasoned leader end.
Excellent examples, and I think it really speaks to what we're trying to share here when we talk about the voices of leadership as we go through the different 7 voices that we're going to speak to. But all of that has to have those key pieces. And I think, one of the things that happens is transformation rarely happens in a straight line. And a lot of times it's under the pressure, whether it be the pandemic or it be a critical situation. I know because we spoke about how to make sure that the Army story resonates with the communities where the propensed individuals to serve were. And can you share a moment when in your career leading that type of change, because you had to change the approach to how we shared the Army with the communities where these young people who were prepared to serve but may not have had a veteran in their midst or may not have had a connection to the United States Army. So as a leader, can you share a moment in that process where you were under the pressure of meeting the requirement, but at the same time, you knew that you had to have the courage, the moral clarity to make the decisions that help you be successful, which inevitably you were?
Sure. Well, thanks, Allie. And again, I don't want to just focus on the last command, but in the last command is the best example to maybe get to that. And there were some other ones as well, but and this is one I think any service I know, well, really our whole country can understand it. And back in, we see, probably mid 22, our military is facing a recruiting crisis. And I was fortunate, I call it, to assume command of the last job, and when it's time to implement a solution for this. So it took some discussion with all the entire probably the best word in this case, the ecosystem that impacted that: high schools, veterans, service members, the most precious asset, recruiters, and look at things in a different way to bring in those young men and women that wanted to serve. And I don't need to go through all the details of COVID. Post-COVID was part of it, but it took some really innovative ideas, very much supported by the Army enterprise, in this case, a 1,000% team effort to get through this crisis. And communicating with folks, you'll have some that said, well, we've never done it this way. This is the way we've always done it. Well, that ain't working. Period. That's not working. Or it needs to be modified. So what adjustments needed to be made? Good leaders in place. I'm not taking credit for that one bit. I don't need to mention them on the podcast, but some good leaders driving change, making things happen, bringing the resources and bringing in the ecosystem. Parents involved, recruiters involved, high schools involved, businesses involved that helped things to organizations show the importance of the military in this case. And I know that can probably be applied to many things, but it's just not doing that in isolation and having some measurable objectives to see if it's working. And you can see the progress. And to fast forward now, I guess it's been over 3 years. All the services in the Army making their recruiting goals. That's just but one example. A previous one, 3 assignments ago, things have been done the same way for many, many years to adapt. In this case, was training. How do we need to train to meet the adversaries of today and later? Made some pretty drastic changes in the organization on how in this case was the operations group did things. It took about 8 months. Building of the coalition, doing some research, doing some rehearsals, making some mistakes and fixing it. And again, not focus on what's happening then. Where do we need to be in 5 years? Because technology is moving like that. Adversary skills are growing like that. This isn't overmatch. This is be much better. And I'm sure that could apply to anything.
You words are interchangeable here. I think whether you're talking the military mission of recruiting talent, or you're being at a corporation where you're the new leader, the new CEO, or the new line of business leader, and you've got to assess the talent you have and make sure that you can get the talent you need. And being able to come in and say, you know, I can remember in a past opportunity, I joined a little company, might have some ears on it, down in Orlando, where I was brought in, and everyone on the staff was more senior in the environment, but we had to bring about change in order to move the organization forward. You know, and I can remember thinking back and reflecting doing that. You know, I'm the new guy, but there's change that's got to happen. You know, and I think one of the things that I would love for you to share is what helped center you during the time that you had to go through those changes, whether it be the immediate past command or the one a few years ago. As a leader, how do we center ourselves to make sure that we make the decisions that we can stand by?
You know, as far as centering yourself, I want to give credit to two mentorship sessions I had. I won't need to mention the name. One of them was a peer that we did a lot of discussion on work-life balance, and he shared with me it's really work-life prioritization, because there will be times in any profession that it's selfish, you know, and so you had to pick, you know, this is the priority this week or that week, and it help to balance things with a family that supports me, my wife that supports me, and those that you work with. So the work-life prioritization, this is towards the latter half of the career for sure. The light bulb came on and said, spot on. And then apply that to you. You know what's important for you. Like, I know I'm getting up in the morning, work out and drink coffee and watch CNN, whatever. Yeah, not advocating for that news channel, but anybody. Well, my point is it's a battle rhythm to help provide that balance. And then always take some time to pass the mirror test before sending that decision out or executing things. And it doesn't have to be done alone. We all have a trusted, can make a smaller circle that can assist you, whether it's your military staff, an aide de camp if you have one, someone outside the organization as a whole can assist with this. So that helped to center and ground things. And then also tied to that, Allie, I would say you may get recommendations that you disagree with, but if that's going to be the case, I think we have the ownership. The leader has the ownership to share why I see these things this way and where I need to get there. So all that coalition is important, or the integration of the staff or the resources are important. And just share it, not in an apologetic way, but in an ownership way, because it's on you as a leader. And then I would offer, you know, in this case, and I know, Allie, you didn't ask this one directly, but for the person, the leader,
yes.
Director, know your strengths and your weaknesses, and don't be so hard-headed to not deal with them. If I'll use a personal one. I know most of my energy is in the morning, mid-afternoon, with that work. So leverage that. Or guys, I don't need 26-inch binders. I'm just a little information paper. Listen, I'd rather talk to you. So know your strengths and weaknesses as well. So the leader has to know that to make sure that not so much that he or she is most effective, that's important, but you are most effective for those that you're serving. And they're going to help the success of the team and allow you some clarity to make proper decisions and give proper guidance to advance the ball and meet those objectives. And that was learned over years, of course, but have seen the value in it in the last command, even before that, and giving clear, concise guidance, opportunity for growth and execution and adjustments. And you're amazed. I bring this back to the people. I'm cautious of the time. That approach may, I'm not saying always will, help you leverage true talent of every individual in that organization. One may be a software decoder or coder. Great. That's what they do. Nobody does it better. One of them may be the best person that pulls together a team. Nobody does it better. And you get to learn them some. And lastly, tied to that with the people, when it comes to transformation and innovation, a person may be in a job today that is going to be rescoped or might go away or something. So it may require some movement of their personnel, may require some upskilling. We went through a case where everybody had to get some data literacy training or they just become irrelevant. So that investment in the body, the people, is as important as the technology and other assets that may be part of the innovation. And that collective lens will help solidify, my words, transformation and innovation of any organization. And I'll stop there.
I think you just, you set it up perfectly. It's almost like you were in my head when we were pulling this together. I think one of the things that's really powerful right now is, leadership skills matter. And that in this rapidly changing world, it's going to matter even more. And when you throw out two letters and people either have a fear or an embracing attitude toward it, and that's AI. AI is here. And the challenge is how do we use it? I don't subscribe to the attitude of it's going to replace everything, because it can't. It requires a human in order to, it's a tool. But whereas leaders, when we think about how to leverage those technologies, one of the things is that you said, we're going to have to do some upskilling. We're going to have to do some changing in attitude and thought and how we deploy even that tool with our teams. As we think about looking forward, what would you share to leaders or the skills that will matter most in our rapidly changing world? And what do you hope leaders continue to do or do differently in the years ahead?
Sure. I know one of a certain age group had to embrace it myself, was technology is there. And those in the organization, leveraging robotics and AI, machine learning, you name it, it's there. Like you can buy a car on your cell phone now. So accept the benefits of technology or different ways of doing things, you name it. And then the leader himself might have to do some adapting. Like, hey, I need to go to this course to get smart on how to use this thing and leverage the benefits, and think through the guardrails that may be necessary to manage the ethics and new ways folks are going to write term papers and things like that. That's key. But I think any of us would probably not be wise. I won't say anything more cruel than that, but would not be wise to understand the capabilities that are out there when it comes to technology, new ways of doing things, but yet that human may be the one that applies the judgment, maybe the one that applies the ethical guardrails that are necessary. I'm not speaking of AI in particular, any technology, or may apply how this fits into the objectives that the organization, the unit organization needs to achieve. So the human as a centerpiece, my words here, and we applied a lot of the changes in the military or the army this way. The soldier's a centerpiece, the human a centerpiece is critical, but you got to think through it so you have the integration that's necessary to leverage what the technology will do, and not allow the technology is not a replacement. You're just leveraging the outcome that's necessary. And then maybe some cases where it does. I'll give an example. If a robot can do something that is in a breach field or minefield that a soldier doesn't have to do, put the robot out there because you're saving a life. But a human needs to be involved with the other capabilities that could come from technology. And we have all seen it. Just 2 years ago, I'm embarrassed to say this, but my first good iPhone in a while. But really see the capabilities that are coming out of it now. So a long way of saying, Allie, it is necessary to keep a human in the loop, my thoughts. But as an organization responsible for the development, give opportunities for folks to go to school, get smart on things, and leverage that. Or duty description may take them another way.
It's excellent. I mean, couldn't have said it any better. I appreciate you sharing that personal perspective as well. And sir, before we wrap up, I have one final question that we ask every guest in this series. If you could leave today's listeners with one piece of wisdom about leading through transformation, what would it be?
Leading through transformation is to keep an eye on what must be sustained and keep an eye on the trajectory of where your organization needs to go, whether it's a small team, a 50,000 man organization, or 500,000 man corporation. And the parallel efforts are important because you have responsibility for both. in military terms, near-term readiness and preparing for future readiness. And I'll perhaps very much just a personal perspective, Allie, is the importance of the people that make that happen. Not the give less value to other things, but the people that make that happen as well, in a parallel line of effort, or in what must be sustained, and then where we're going is a bigger challenge the leader has. And I know leadership in the dictionary will be called a noun, as it should be. But that leader putting an action verb behind it to pull the team to get that done. And that's what I would leave with the team. And actually, and I'll probably leave with myself now as well, as I think about it, as I look over the last 38 years, and hope to apply that in the future as well. But thanks, Allie, for this opportunity.
You're very welcome. And folks, wherever you're listening, these are those conversations that come about because of relationships. And as I stated in Engage, Invest, Grow, building those relationships become incredible because they create insight into what's possible, what's actually possible. It creates insight to have resources on tables that you can pick the phone up and make a phone call and not feel robbery to say, sir, would you spend 30, 40 minutes with me? We could go on for another 20 minutes, but I promised him we keep this here. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me and being, and being a part of the Voices of Leadership, because I think it's so important. What we try to do with Off the Record is to let people on the inside of a conversation they may not be party to. And I think that's exactly what we did today, and talking through the voice of innovation and leading through transformation. So you'll always be General Gary and Brito to me. I had to get used to calling you Gary, but thank you so much for coming and spending time with us on the Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. And folks, I ask that you always tune in at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, because if it's 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, you never know who will be sitting across from me or joining me in the studio for Off the Record, the Real Talk podcast. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Hey, thank you very much, Allie. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.